Please give a warm welcome to writer-director Coralie Fargeat.
Thank you so much.
Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Good evening.
I told you, Coralie, when I introduced the film, I told them that this whole film is full of allegories, and I'd love to, if you don't mind, started deconstructing some of it. From the get-go, that imagery of the Hollywood Boulevard and the star, and we watch it crack and becomes trash. Can you tell us about grabbing onto that symbol?
Yes. So good evening, everyone. That's so great to see this packed room here. It's my first time in Santa Barbara, so I'm really, really
Won't be your
happy. Yes, absolutely. Symbolism is really at the heart of the film. That's really, when I write, I know that the way I'm going to express myself and build my story is not going to be through dialogue. So when I start to write from the beginning, I start to find the symbolic elements that are going to share the ideas that I want to convey. So for instance, for the film, the very first element that I had was this idea of the dream of a better version of yourself, and which means, like, you know, the relationship that you have with your image, with the way people see you, the expectations that people, you know, put on you, the kind of pressure that you have to conform to a certain norm. And when I started to write the story, I asked myself, okay, so who my main character could be to symbolize this for everyone, you know, for every woman everywhere. And that's where the idea of the actress came to mind, because she's the one who kind of lives under the public eye, and, you know, and who's under other people who look at her. And when I asked myself, okay, so if she's an actress, what would the best symbol of an actress would be? And that's when I had the idea of this star on the Walk of Fame, about this, you know, image of Hollywood, which is not the realistic one, but the kind of unconscious collective dream that we all have. Even if we haven't been there, we have an idea, we have an image of what it is. And so I knew that when I had found this symbol, like the star, I had found the main element for me who would enable me to grant my story not into realism, but into my own reality, my own symbolical representation of Hollywood. Right. And this idea, I remember when I had the idea for this scene, because it's such a powerful symbol, this star. It represents so much, you know, things, movies that we've seen. It's really related to, yes, to fame, to beauty, to the desire to be loved, to be seen, to be, you know, to have a place in society. And yes, when this idea of having this star aging to kind of represent the first chapter of the life of the character being already behind, like she has been a huge movie star, and now when we start the story, like the only window where she still can be seen in a camera is no more like the big screen,
Correct.
But it's TV on this aerobic show, where she still has an audience. There is still this light on her. There is still the eye of the camera, but the scale is not the same, because where she landed after, you know, the first chapter of her life. And yes, I really love to be able to tell the scenes and the big moments, not with dialogues, but really with the images and the sounds that gonna build the story.
I'm a big fan of your whole mise-en-scène. You just now gave us some background on who Elizabeth is, but you give it to you. You give all of that to us visually. For example, the corridor, that orange corridor that symbolizes her life, correct? Is everything that's transpired. When we go to her apartment and she looks at the window, she's looking at her past. It is, to me, it's mind-boggling that you used all the production design to give us the background and the story about this person. Can you tell us about that approach?
Yes, it's true. It's the same thing. Like to me, I know that as I'm gonna edit the movie, I know that what I'm gonna show and represent in terms of location, in terms of colors, in terms of perspective, is the grammar that I love to use and that I love to use to, yes, share the backstory, share what the audience should unconsciously feel. And to me, that's where I feel that I love to convey something very visceral and something very immersive. And it's true that for those locations, I know that the locations in my films, it was true also in the previous one, there are real characters in the movie. There are real characters, or at least, let's say, it's the places where you can see what's in the character's mind.
Right.
Like, as you said, like the corridor, it's like this huge perspective as, you know, her life starts at the beginning of the corridor, and when she's at the end of the corridor, her life is over. It's really like, you know, this kind of domination, like the sensation that, you know, she's gonna be crushed, she's gonna be, something is gonna happen. And it's the place that also where Harvey, you know, kind of take the space, is the one, you know, who takes away the posters, and he's the one who remain. And at the, you know, this corridor doesn't change. The only thing, you know, that she can do at the end is splatter, paint it
right.
with another color,
right.
you know, with the blood. And for the apartment, it's exactly what you said. For me, the relationship to the view and also to the kind of timeless feeling, you know, that I wanted to have for this apartment.
Modern, but timeless at the same time.
Exactly. There is, you know, some kind of vintage element, some kind of futuristic elements blend together, because I wanted the story to feel true from the past, from the present. Unfortunately, I think it will still be a little bit in the future. But for me, yes, all those elements are ideas that come when I start to write the characters and what's going into their mind. And the view, as you say, at first it's Elizabeth's past that she looks at.
But Sue looks at it the same view, and then we see future.
Exactly.
Which is, you know, tell us about how you were able, it's almost like a Kuleshov effect. Like we see the same shot, but they completely symbolize two different views.
Exactly. And so that was one of the main elements for me, because this view, exactly depending on which eyes look at it, is going to mean something very different. And so for Sue, when Sue arrives, it was really the idea of the feeling that, you know, she's born again. It's like really the phoenix that is born from its own ashes, and who is kind of infused of a strength, of an energy, and who is ready to eat the world again. And so there was this symbol of the dragon of fire, you know, the dragon that is really like the symbolism of power, of to rise again, together with the view. And the view, yes, she's ready to conquer, and like she's gonna take the city again. And so for Sue, everything becomes new and becomes something that she's going to conquer, while Elizabeth becomes more and more secluded in the apartment, which becomes soon as a prison where she's not going to go out anymore. So it's as if the apartment was kind of reflecting the journey of the character, whether it is with Elizabeth or whether it is with Sue. And it goes together with also the costumes that see for my characters from the script writing, from the moment when I write, because it's true that I really see my characters are icons. You know, there are symbolism of the character that they represent, and so for me it's like when I write, I want to find their superhero costume. You know, the one that we're gonna look at them and we're gonna recognize. Oh yes, it's.
Which for Elizabeth is the yellow sort of,
exactly.
It's like a cape that she wears.
Yes, exactly. It's like, you know, something like wherever she is, you can recognize her in the space with this very particular color, distinctive color, that is her identity. And I don't know exactly why it's the yellow that came in my mind when I wrote, but I felt probably because I think the yellow has some kind of timeless also sensation about being grounded in the past, but can also be the present. There is something very iconic, I think, and so that's how it came together.
Sue is pink.
Exactly. So Sue, it's the pink. It's the kind of, yes, like girly, sexy, you know, pink representation of like young girl, Barbie, like all those elements, you know, that I've grown up with, like boys should have blue and girls should have, you know, pink. That was as simple and, you know, as that. And I think that the way like this color is strongly linked to like the idea of being a girl, being, you know, feeling sexy or feeling looked at in a very immediate symbolic manner, is something that is as simple, crazy simple and crazy powerful at the same time. And there is a second layer for Sue once past the rebirth, where everything is girly, bubbly, poppy, where we feel that there is this darker, you know, strengths, more where she go to a darker mental space, where she has all her sensuality, femininity, which grows and grows, and she doesn't want to let, you know, Elizabeth come back again, which become darker with the, you know, like the big blue velvet gown, with the cat suit, which is black, and the idea was really as if the you know, the cat suit was a second skin, like with this kind of snake, something that infuses her with some kind of danger as well, as if she couldn't control totally her own strengths. And so that's where also with her costumes, there is this second layer of the character that starts to become more threatening to Elizabeth. And so these are things that have really a very specific balance, and again, they are not totally grounded into reality. I remember for the yellow coat, for instance, when we started prep with Demi, we started, you know, to do costume fittings, and she was telling me, no, but in Los Angeles you can't have such a heavy coat. Like in the summer you wouldn't wear a coat. So at first she felt the coat, you know, was not logical, and so I took some time to, you know, to discuss with her and explaining her exactly why the coat, even if, of course, in LA you wouldn't wear that, you know, warm coat, for the character was what was gonna, you know, define herself together with her performance. And little by little, she adopted the coat, and I think she understood that, yes, it was really part of the character and part of the performance. And of course, now I'm so happy that this yellow coat, you know, became something very emblematic for the film and for the character. And when we were building the sets, all those colors were, you know, answering to one another when we were outside, because we shot everything in France. Like all the locations, the apartments are on stage, and all the exteriors, when we see the palm trees, is in south of France, in Cannes. And so, you know, I love to use, same thing, to use the symbols. Like, to me, like, I need one palm tree under a blue sky.
Palm tree, yes.
Exactly, and it means something. It gives you this idea that is like a dream at the beginning, and when you see them at night with this shape, like, dark under the black sky, that become more and more threatening as a, spider that is kind of the mental space of the character again, that is starting to go to darker places. And I think for me to be able to escape realism gives such a creative freedom and gives such yes, something that you can bring and develop and feed with your own, creativity and energy, and you don't have to respect, the usual rules that you have to respect in your everyday life. And that's from the start. I know when I write my scripts, I'm really looking for those elements where I'm going to be able to express myself that way.
Absolutely exhilarating to hear you speak. It's like, you're brilliant. Tell me about the way your camera visualizes Sue. We're used to seeing the male gaze, the way women are shot, and you parody it with Sue and your approach to the female and male gaze.
Yes, so the bodies in the film where I knew were going to be a big part of the way I wanted to express the ideas. That's why I decided that I wanted Elizabeth at the beginning to be in this aerobic class, because I wanted to be able to film what my movie is about, to film the bodies and to film the transformation when she's going to be in Sue, the way her body is seen and the way she inhabits her body in a very different way. And so in this relationship with nudity for the two characters, they are set in very different setup. Like for Elizabeth, it's the relationship with her body that there is in this bathroom, which is the symbol of her inner space. In this bathroom, it's really some kind of symbolic chamber, which is, there is nowhere to hide, no one is looking, there is no window. It's just her with the reality of her body as being like superhuman, super normal, the way it is for real, and the way no one looks at it except herself. And what we see when she looks at herself in the mirror, that she's not happy about, because we can see that she has ingested everything that the outside world, has projected on her.
Yes.
And in the bathroom, the body is not sexualized at all. It's, it's the reality of the body the way it is. And that was also, for me, important to film those bodies laying down on the floor with their heaviness, with their reality, with the fact that, they're going to be like in awkward positions when, they're unconscious. Because this is a place where nobody looks at you. It's the place where you're just you with yourself, and it's going to be the place where she's going to hurt herself the most, where she's going to, try and transform herself many, many times and get worse and worse. And at the contrary, when she's reborn in Sue, the way Sue is going to use her body and the way her body is going to be shown by the camera is like totally different. There is, I think, two steps. There is the first step, which is really the discovery. When she's born, there is, this whole POV sequence when she's waking up and she discovers herself in the mirror, and there is the first, shock and like amazing moments where she discovers like this totally, perfect, young, full of hormones body, where there is this kind of perfection and everything is energizing for her. And the second beat is when she does her own show, where she goes outside in the world. And then her body is really seen through the eyes of people who look at it. It's, you know, the guys in the streets that look at her. And during the show, it's the way her body is hyper-sexualized to have, again, a place in society. It's the way, you know, she's gonna basically fall into the same trap again. Like, she's gonna put herself in front of the eyes of other people to get her value. So it's going to be the camera again looking at her, and in pieces, like, you know, then the body become really, I think, a body that is almost chopped into body parts, like
right.
It's boobs, it's ass, it's tights, it's
pardon me to interrupt, but I have to ask you, I imagine you storyboarding all of this. Am I correct? And then like shots of butts and shots of, you know, boobs. Is that how you like blocked everything?
Yes. So especially for these sequences, so basically I prep a lot, and from the script, it's true that I really write what I'm going to film, like a lot of the framings, the pacing, the sound, because I really have in mind a very, very specific way that I want to put on screen. Also because after I edit, so I already know, you know, what frame I want and everything, and especially for those scenes where, you know, it's all about what a framing and an edit can give you as sensation, whether it is for the birth scene when Elizabeth injects herself for the first time, or for the pump it up when it's all about these bodies becoming more and more almost overwhelming. You know, when you go closer and closer and closer, it's like the butts are gonna eat you, you know, like it's almost like it's the thing that, you know, like I've grown up with, like all those rap video clips where, you know, where you can feel, you can think that the more sexualized you are, the more looked at you're gonna be, the more, you know, successful you're gonna be. And I think the difference, I think it's a complex thing about where your freedom is, because to me the idea is to say that we should be able to use our bodies the way we want. We should be able to do whatever we want with them, like whether it is to be sexy, to be not sexy. But, you know, the limit between what you think you want for yourself on a very totally free willing, and what society, you know, has unconsciously programmed you to think to make you feel that you're going to have an interest or a place. I think it's very complex, you know, matters. And part of Sue's character really represent that I think, you know, there is both like the joy of course, inhabiting again a young body, which is great, like, which is, she feels powerful, she feels like, you know, everything again is at her feet. But I think there is also the fact that there is this new pressure about, yes, she has to be, again, totally according to the standards, you know, that she didn't have anymore when she was Elizabeth. So when her, again, she's threatened not to be perfect anymore with this scene of the bump in the ass with the bulge, you know, that appear on her butt cheek, it's the nightmare again that she's going to be discovered, that, you know, that she also has some imperfection. And so, yes, those scenes, to be able to really convey the intensity that I want, with the fact that what you see and what you hear put you in some kind of trance, you know, with those dancing, or when the billboard is kind of overwhelming Elizabeth when she wants to go out on her date. All this is a very, very specific dance about, you know, framing, rhythm, very specific shots that get closer and closer. And it's true that it's a rhythmic that I develop in my head, like from the script, and in a kind of an obsessive way when I prep to build the exact rhythm that I know is going to give this.
Which leads me to the industrial sound that you have as the soundtrack. Is that something that inspired you, that industrial sort of almost visceral sound?
Yes, so it's a great question, because like equally to the visuals and to the symbols, to the visual symbols, like the sound is a huge part of the way I'm going to build my story. And when I start writing, the first thing that I do is research visual and to research sound and music to find the vibe and the DNA of the film. And I remember when I started to write, I listened to a lot of music that were part electronic, but that had a lot of almost as heartbeats, you know, that were very pulsative. There was this kind of pulsation, some kind of rhythm linked almost, yes, to a heartbeat that go boom, 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 something that grows, that is overwhelming also. And I do listen to those tracks while I write, and that's also what gives me the rhythm of the scenes, especially for the scenes where there is no dialogue, such as the burst, you know, when Elizabeth injects herself. And then after, when I met with Rafferty, the composer, who is from the UK, I had gathered many references, and it was both. What I really liked in his work when I listened to what he was doing was he had this industrial vibe, very raw, very violent, very something that makes you feel into your guts that something is uncomfortable, which I loved. But there were also a few pieces in what he had done before that were so moving, with more strings, you know, elements, violins, that has this purity, you know, of something that reached your heart, and that resonated with me equally for what I needed for the movie, because the movie is really about wanting to be loved, you know, like everything that the character goes through, everything that she does, every trap into which she falls into is because, yes, she wants to be loved. She wants, you know, like to have a place in society and to feel that she deserves to exist. And there is this tragic element as well that I wanted to be, yes, grounded in a more emotional track for music. And so that's how the score took shape. Yeah, and I think it was great to have those both elements that translated so well in the score.
Really powerful. Quick question from the cinephile in me. You use a bit from Vertigo, and you know, tell us about that choice, which is fantastic.
Yes, so this story is funny because at the beginning, so when I started to edit, I didn't have a composer, and so I was using temp tracks. You know, I was using music from other films to build my edit, because like you need to have sound to find the rhythm of your scenes. And for that moment, when the monster starts to put her earring and starts to get ready, I knew I wanted some kind of princess-related, some kind of sweetness, you know, that brings you to the dream that you have when you're a kid and you look at those beautiful women, you know, in old movies that, yes, are worshipped and are, you know, like some kind of goddess, you know. And there is this kind of sweetness and emotion. So I tried a lot of things from, you know, like music, I don't remember, from Cinderella or from classical music, or from shows that was about, like, you know, like princess with big dress and stuff like that, and nothing was really working. I was still missing an element. And suddenly I thought about this track on Vertigo, and I said, oh, I'm going to try that for the temp track. And suddenly, like, something magical happened, because I think it was like some kind of meta element that was entering the scene, because I think the scenery of the bedroom, you know, with that girl, that monster in that case, getting ready in front of this, her makeup glass, which really put us back to all the imagery of the cinema, you know, of like the beauty of the actress that gets ready, linked to this music that is in itself a very strong symbol of, you know, the star system with those beautiful actresses.
And Hitchcock and objectifying women.
Exactly, yes. And it was like also what I think stayed in our brain, like, you know, like the thing that it was very controlled, it was very in a certain way, and I think it resonates with what we've grown up with in this regard. And so I felt like the track was working really, really well. But when I worked with the composer, I told him, okay, let's try to do something. Like, we couldn't use it, so we tried to compose. He tried to compose something. And he did some nice things, but I felt, and he agreed with me, that nothing was as strong and as powerful as the temp tracks. And sometimes you don't know if it's because like you're used to it, but I think part of us knew that something magic in terms of, you know, the right fit for a scene had happened. And so I said, you know what, I think we should really try and find a way to keep it. So that's where I asked the music supervisor to see if he could get us the rights, you know, to use that track. And it turned out that he found a way to get an edition that, you know, wasn't too expensive for a budget, and that's how, you know, the music stays in the scene. And that's what I love, like some things that were not planned, that there is a magic that happens and that you need to identify, and that's the magic also of cinema. Like, you can control so many things, and to me, I'm very, you know, I love to be in very detail and to control, but there is also those things that's the real life and the real moment of what you do when you do it that creates stuff that you hadn't planned. And this is also the beauty of it. And I think that's the mix between what you plan, what you design, and also the reality of the human flesh and the human being that lives when you do things and that evolves, you know, constantly. So that was one example of a, yes, beautiful accident, or not accident, but unplanned, you know, thing that turned out to, yeah, to create something that I love.
One of the things is one of the many things that's powerful about your film is that you actually articulate on screen the violence that women are subjugated to in expectations, in the media, the way women should be looking. And I had never thought until I saw your film what a violent act that is towards women. And then I want to ask you about the natural ending, that, like, I couldn't think of a better way for you to let go and just like, you know, let go of the corset and scream at the audience. Am I on the wrong track? Right?
Oh, not at all. No, I think it's exactly what I wanted to say with that scene. I think it's two steps. The first step is the final transformation when she discovers herself monstrous in the mirror, and it's you know, finally everything that she had to care about, you know, in terms of body. All her body parts are so like in the wrong place that it's the first moment where there is this kind of, okay, I don't care anymore. You know, the butt is on my head, like the boobs are all over the place, the teeth are in the stomach, like, okay, so we're far from, you know, being under control anymore. And I think it's the first moment where there is some kind of relief for the character. You know, she looks at herself in the mirror and she gonna decide that, yes, she's gonna dress, she's gonna put her earrings, and she's gonna go out and she's gonna go on stage, and because she says she finally feel that she deserved to have her place in the world no matter what. She deserved to have her moment. And it's the first time where basically she finally loved herself for who she is. And that's why when she arrives and she says, it's me, it's me, it's me, she has seen finally her real who she is, not for what she looks like, but for who she really is. And of course, like, it doesn't totally happen, you know, the way she wish. And the audience kind of represents what the outside world and what society, you know, still behaves and still, you know, yes, reacts. And so the final moment with this explosion of blood, this explosion of flesh, it's exactly what you say. Like, to finally not be under control and not give a fuck about, you know, the expectations that have weighed on her for so long. As you said, everything should be under control with a corset. We shouldn't have flesh. We shouldn't have this. And the final thing is like, I don't care. I don't care. I want to, you know, express myself. I want to be. And it's also a way to kind of, yes, to kind of send the accusation also on the audience about, look at what you're creating. Look at the violence that you're creating.
Did you yourself as a filmmaker feel that release about, I don't give a fuck how people feel about my film now, I'm just gonna go all out?
Yes. No, it was a very merci. It was a very, very liberating process for me, and I think it's true that there is a real resonance for me about having totally accepted myself as who I am as a filmmaker, and not be ashamed, because I am and we are, I think, in constant judgment, you know, or I shouldn't be doing this or I shouldn't be doing that. And I think when I finally accepted that this was who I am, like the type of film that I do, I don't use dialogue, I use visuals, I use sound, I use excess, I don't do in subtlety, you know, that's what I love to do. That's where I feel in control, that's where I feel powerful. And maybe some people are not gonna like it, but some other will. And when I finally accepted that this would be my strength, like to accept it totally with its quality, and probably it's I don't know how you said the inverse of quality, the opposite of quality is
opposite of quality
is the flows, like,
yeah,
you know,
mediocrity.
Yeah. That's where I think you have something that is alive, that is, you know, sincere, that is as a human being, as a body, that is going to be a real thing, that's not going to be perfect, but that's going to be lively, that's going to be full of something that is true, and that, you know, I think is going to create something. And for the little story, I was the one manipulating the hose on the blood for the final scene and spraying the audience, and I had the helmet cam, like, and I was like spraying, so it was very liberating.
That's awesome. I would be remiss to, you know, if I forget to ask you about Demi Moore. What a freaking amazing, uncompromising performance. Tell us about, did you always know that she had it in her to give us something like this? And tell us about working with Demi.
So I didn't know at all at first. At the point that when, you know, we researched ideas for casting after, because I, you know, when I write, I always have an idea, and then you go into the casting process and you have some no's, or people are not available or don't want to do the film, or so we were, you know, keeping researching ideas, because I wanted an actress who would be iconic, you know, who would be a symbol in itself. We're speaking about symbols. And I knew what was challenging is that I was going to ask an actress to confront her worst phobia, you know. So it was going to be very challenging. And when the name of Demi arrived in the conversation, I said, oh, of course, it's a great idea. It would be amazing, but let's not lose time with that, because I'm sure she will never, never want to do something like that. For real, I thought like she would never be, you know, willing to destroy her image the way the movie needed, you know, to do so.
Right.
But I said, it's a great idea, so, you know, let's send the script, let's not wait too long, but, you know, we have nothing to lose. And she reacted very quick, telling that she really loved the script. And so from this point we met, because, you know, the part was so intense in every way, regarding everything. Like, she's on screen almost all the time. The movie is really a vision that is, you know, so specific, so excessive, that it has to be something that the actress is really going to understand and want to go for what it is and not expecting something else. So for me, the most important when we start to meet was to explain her everything that I wanted to do, everything that I've told you, for the symbolism, for the location, for the nudity, for, you know, of course, the level of prosthetics that there would be. I wanted her to have in mind everything that she was going to have to face, to be sure that she was willing to take the risk, because I think that there is nothing worse when you know, you start a project and a film together, and mid-course, no, I thought it would be, you know, not that much. And I knew it couldn't be that way. So I wanted to really give her everything possible that was in my mind, in the level of excess, in the level of how also, you know, the nudity would be a tool to tell the story, the meaning of every shot, so she could understand them and then infuse them with her own, you know, emotion. Also because we had, you know, very long shoots. We shot more than 100 days to do all the crazy prosthetics, you know, and every detailed frame that were very technical. We shot in France, so it was far from her home. And we shot in a more, let's say, indie way. It was not the big Hollywood machine that she was used to, you know, in the movie that she had done. So I also wanted her to be aware of that, because that's what the life she was going to jump into. And I must say that at the same time that I was explaining her all this, I also read her book that she had brought me, like Inside Out. And I discovered a totally different person than the one I had in my mind just by watching her film when I was younger. I really discovered someone who made herself totally by herself, you know, following her own way, her own path, you know, doing everything from herself in a very, very hard male-dominated industry, where she managed, you know, to make her way, and also to make choices which, as a time, I didn't really realize when I was younger, were very, very bold, were very innovative, were very ahead of her time in terms of feminism, the way you decide to use your body, how she decided to pose pregnant naked, you know, on this cover of Vanity Fair. It was a huge thing. And so I really discovered someone who had a very free spirit, you know, someone I said, like, when I read her book, I say, oh my God, she really rocks. Like, she's super, she's a risk taker. I didn't know before. And when I read that, I understood that, yes, she had what the character needed, the part needed to go to the level of excess that the film would need. And also I discovered someone who's very intuitive, very instinctive. And so I think that she, because with those movies which are extreme, which are operatic, baroque, you never know, you can never know the results until it's there. And it's true that it's a very risky project, because when a kind of regular film is not so good, it's not so good, it's okay. But when those type of film where things are really pushed very far, if it's not good, it can be really a disaster. It can be really like bad. But I think that she decided that the project was worth the risk, because she felt that if we succeeded, to build what was on the page, on the script, it could be something important. And I think those conversations are really what builds the relationship that we had during the shooting, that allowed us, even during the difficult moments, because a shooting is always challenging. Like, you know what you have to film, but the day you have to film those challenging scenes, it's tough. It's like challenging on an emotional level. And so it's long, it's tiring, and so there are moments like, it's not an easy sea, you navigate waves. But those conversations really sealed the fact that we wanted to do the same film, that she understood exactly where I wanted to go, she respected the vision, and she said, like, yes, if I go, I know that I have to go 100%. And that level of trust was, to me, the most important element that we needed to build what I knew the movie needed. Because, like, if each scene is not at the right level of intensity, the rest of the movie doesn't work. So, if she holds back during the cooking scene, or during, the knee scene, or during the Gollum, or the makeup, or all these, like, are stones that lead us to the next crazy part. But if we missed one, then the balance, the castle doesn't work. So it was, it's for an actor, it's a huge performance, like, to do scenes without any word at all, because everything comes from what you give with your body, with your acting, but with no words. And also having to mind, because those scenes are particularly challenging on a technical way, because it's the same, everything is so detailed, choreographed, that if you miss a beat, if you miss a camera move, you have to do it all over again. So managing to have at the same time all the camera works, all the rest of the image that works together with the performance, which has to stay or to grow to the level that will be the right intensity for the film, is a huge challenge. And I must say that she blew me away, because she never gave up, even in the moment where it was tough, even in the moments where it was emotionally challenging. She was always so invested by the part, because she knew that it was the best strength that she could give to her character, to be always mindful of investing it with her own emotion.
Mm-hmm. Well, I have to tell you that I was a huge admirer of your film prior to you being here. Now I'm like in awe of you. I think you're brilliant. And thank you so much for being here tonight.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. Thank you.